Hey Highlanders, a quick announcement from Brandon here. I wanted to say this episode was recorded before the shelter in place and before most of the information had come out about the coronavirus. So we were actually still able to do this in person, this interview, as well as you'll hear us talk about like the information that's starting to come out. But know that at this point, nothing had been really put in place, and so they were still figuring things out. Anyways, just wanted to give that a quick disclaimer. So this was recorded well before that. Anyways, let's get into the episode. Hey Islanders, and welcome to episode 39 of the Camano Voice. On this episode, I speak to the founder of Three Roosters Nursery. Please welcome Bob Schroepfer. Hi, I'm Brandon Erickson, and you're listening to the Camano Voice podcast, where I interview folks around Camano Island and beyond. If you want to stay up to date on events, businesses, and even hear a little history of this area, subscribe to this podcast and share with your friends. Thanks for listening. Hey Islanders, and welcome to another episode of the Camano Voice, where we release a new episode every Tuesday. On this episode, I got to speak to Bob Schroepfer, who's the founder of Three Roosters Nursery here on Camano Island. And what that does is they do pottery. He does pottery and has worked with the art, some of the artists and done a lot of the art shows in the area and abroad. But I knew Bob Schroepfer because he's actually the dad to one of my best friends, Wesley, who I'm hopefully going to get on the podcast at some point. He's a pilot. But anyways, I digress. So Bob, I've known him for a long time, and he's just been, he's hilarious when you're talking with him. And I've really been looking forward to this interview because the other thing is, growing up, Bob Schroepfer was someone that knew a little bit or a lot of it about so many different things. So whenever my friend or I were having issues with like cars or anything, like we could always ask Bob and he'd be like, well, yeah, I think you can do this. And so he just had this great knowledge base. And I was always wondering like, where did this all come from? Like, how did he learn so much about so many different aspects? So now I know, after going through the interview, so you get to hear about his kind of life experiences, all the different fields that he's been involved in. So anyways, had a great time in this interview, and I know you guys will too. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Bob Schroepfer. Hey Islanders, it's Brandon with the Camano Voice, and today I have the founder of Three Roosters Nursery with me. Welcome to the show, Bob Schroepfer.
Thanks, Brandon. So
before we get started, tell us a little bit about Bob.
Well, let me first say congratulations. This is an awesome podcast thing you're doing, and I really appreciate it. I like listening to it, so keep it up, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Great job. Well, first, my name's Bob, but that's spelled with one O, not two. Most people make that mistake, but, that's okay. You laugh, but it's true. I'm from Niagara Falls, New York. That's where I grew up. I didn't have any choice. That's where my parents lived. My dad worked for a company called DuPont, and they also owned a restaurant called Chicken Delight. It was like, don't cook tonight, call Chicken Delight. And we had a little Morris Minor with a little chicken on the roof, and we'd do the deliveries and stuff. And it was kind of cool. Ate a lot of chicken back then. Anyway, Niagara Falls is cool. I used to ride my bicycle all around Niagara Falls. In fact, if you guys ever go out there, the best time, in my opinion, is to go mid-September to mid-October. All the bugs are dead. It's not humid. And I tell you, living out here and going back there, the humidity will kill you. Well, not kill you, but you'll be uncomfortable. And so you can ride your bicycle on the American side. There's the American Falls, and then there's three little islands called Three Sisters. You can ride out there. There's a little thing called Cave of the Winds. You can go down below the falls and walk around. They give you a little raincoat. And then you can ride over the Canada side across the Rainbow Bridge and look at all that. It's actually the best place to see the falls at night when they throw the color lights on them. And so it's pretty cool, and it's a great way to see that area. A lot of history back there too. There was the Devil's Hole. There was a massacre there back in the 17-something. Fort Niagara was a British fort. There's a fort on the Canadian side at the mouth of the Niagara River, and there's just a lot of history, which is kind of cool. And then the leaves change, which is really, really. This is the one thing I miss about living out here is the leaves don't change. They just go from green to yellow. Back there, it's just a multitude of colors, and sometimes what was really fun. And living so close to the falls, I used to go like almost every day, and the mist from the falls would go onto the trees at night, and it got cold towards winter, and then the mist would freeze. So you hit there in the morning, and the sun comes out, and it would look like every leaf was sugar coated. It was really, really pretty.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, it was really neat.
Very cool. It sounds like you should be a tour guide over there.
Yeah, well, it's like any place you live. You had Mike Nestor on. I mean, he's like the tour guide of Camano. He knows everything about the island. So I mean, it's the same kind of thing.
Yeah, very cool. So did you start working in Chicken Delight then with your parents?
Yeah, I made coleslaw.
Okay.
Yeah, that's about all I did. And bring the chicken up to the front, and it was all deep fried, and we had pizza. It's actually a Canadian firm. I think there's a few left up in Canada, which is kind of cool. Yeah,
nice.
It was fun. Yeah.
So then, did you grow up all through high school over there?
Yeah.
Okay.
I went to Niagara Wheatfield High School, home of the Falcons. Woohoo! I didn't play sports. I was more into the wood shop stuff, type things, and the art classes. It was my thing, and then,
Nice.
Yeah.
So then, where'd you go after high school?
Well, right after high school, I worked for an electrician. No, wait, that was after. Right out of high school, me and a friend, his name was Randy, we took his car, which was like, fill up the oil and check the gas. We went to Vegas. And I was a dishwasher in Vegas we just drove out there, said, let's go to Vegas. Okay, let's go. And we went to Vegas, and, it was like dumb, but we did it, and we weren't 21 yet. We couldn't do anything except work. So we worked, and I was, ate good though, because they feed you pretty good in those restaurants if you work in the restaurant. So, and I came home, we ran out of money, had to say, hey, Mom, Dad, I need bus fare, the car broke, and we're broke, and anyway. So I came back home, and I moved out of the house with some high school friends, and we lived in downtown Niagara Falls on 7th Street. We had it was a house, and it was split down the middle, so there was like 3 apartments on one side and 3 apartments on the other side, and we had the top 2 apartments on one side, and there was prostitutes on the other side, and it was interesting, and of course it was the late 60s, early 70s, and there was a lot of what should I say, drug use, but you do what you do, and then you regret it later. Anyway, we had a lot of fun. I worked for one of my friends' names was Brian. His dad was an electrician, and so I got to do a lot of electrical work. He would do. There's a amusement park called Darien Lake. It's not too far from Buffalo, but it's out in the country, and we did all the wiring there. We wired the buildings and all that kind of good stuff. We did like what PUD does. And then we do inside stuff as well. So that was really cool. I worked with a guy named Herb, who was a lineman. He had worked for the PUD of Niagara Falls, which is called Niagara Mohawk, and then he quit. And he went to Vietnam and worked as a lineman. And he came back, and he had a lot of stories, and half of them weren't true. But he taught me a lot about line work, and it was fun. Learned a lot, and yeah. So that's pretty much what I did out of high school. And,
okay.
Yeah.
So then, how long did you guys actually stay in Las Vegas then?
Oh, we were there probably 6 months.
Okay.
Yeah, enough to get in trouble.
Okay.
We were sleeping in this van, and We just pull onto a street and sleep, instead of going to a Walmart parking lot. But the cops came one night and told us we can't do that anymore. So it was, time to leave Vegas, Vagrants. It's legal now, but it wasn't back then.
Yeah. So then you started doing electrician work. Where did you go from there? Did you ever go to? Were you ever looking at colleges or anything like that?
No, I wasn't. I just didn't want to go that way. What I did do is I went to Wisconsin. That's where my sister lived, and she was married to her husband's name is Bruce, and he has a brother named Bernie, and they actually invented the bean picker for farmers.
Oh, okay.
Single row, double row, and a multi-row bean pickers, and so they made them in a little town called Clear Lake, Wisconsin, and they made everything right there. And so what I did was I put that stuff together. I built the bean pickers, mounted them on. They used Ford tractors back then. Ford doesn't make tractors now. It's New Holland. But back then it was Ford tractors. And so I built bean pickers and mounted them on the trailer and then put them on the railroad cars and shipped them out. So it was kind of fun. And then they were also into... My brother-in-law and his brother were into Civil War reenactment. And so they had a couple of cannons, and we'd go to what they call cannon shoots. And then they would shoot their cannons, and all these guys dressed up in Civil War stuff. It was, it's a club kind of, and it was fun. It's like going to a Comic-Con or something. You dress up and be a nerd, but it's harmless.
Except for there's cannons.
There's cannons, but they shoot at targets. They actually, what was it, Fort McMurray? I can't remember the name of the fort exactly. But they did a shoot against, and the cannons were rifled in the Civil War. I don't know if you knew that. Some of them were, the modern ones were rifled, so they could get the projectile to go where they wanted to. And they had a lot of windage gauges and stuff that stuck on the back of the cannon. A lot of really cool stuff.
Okay.
And so they actually shot against the military, and they beat them with their Civil War cannon.
Wow.
As opposed to, I think they were using a howitzer or something. That was kind of cool.
Wow.
They were just shooting at targets, of course, but it was kind of fun. And then, of course, we got not the muskets, but I think about the Springfields. Is that what they're called? The rifles they used in the in Civil War. They were pretty accurate, really long and very accurate.
Yeah.
And they shot, I think it was a 55 caliber bullet. I think that's what it was. It's a long time ago. I don't remember too much, but it was a lot of fun learning. And they built, my brother-in-law and his brother, they built the wheels. They built the cannon carriages. That was their thing. They wouldn't build the cannon itself. They would get a cannon barrel, and they would build a carriage to the specifications of the Civil War ones. So the exact replicas.
Okay.
And so it was interloud. It was fun. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So
that's very cool. Yeah, I know. Yeah. As a kid, there was. And I'm terrible at dating, trying to find what age I was or anything. But I know that that me and one of my friends, and I thought Wes was there as well. We went to some sort of Renaissance reenactment, but at the very end of it, they did shoot a cannon, and it was at some Washington museum as part of our Washington State history trips.
Oh, right.
But yeah, I remember going to that and we were such bad students of the Washington history.
Well, you're a kid, right?
Yeah. So this kind of pseudo grandma would take us to all of these different museums and have us look at everything. And usually about 5 minutes into it, you'd find us in the corner playing a dice game or a card game.
Like scouts when you played Risk.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then at the very end, they're like, "Oh, but there's going to be a cannon shoot." So then we did that, and that was really cool. But it was they were like, "Cover your ears," and then even with that, the impact, everything, it was pretty cool. So.
Well, the neat thing about it was there was a lot of I don't know if you call it neat because everything's designed to kill people, but the round balls, they would put a powder inside of them, and then they would put a fuse, and they would. Depending the guy who was in charge of aiming the cannon, and he would tell them how to carve this fuse so it would explode at a certain time it would hit the powder and explode a different time. So as it's going through the air, it's spinning, and the air is making the fuse burn, right?
Right.
And then they would, the yardage, wherever they figured the yardage was, where they wanted the thing to blow up, it would blow up at that point.
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool. And then and the rifling worked because they had two hard shells on, or like steel or whatever on one side, and lead was in the center of this thing, and they're fused together. And then when it fired, it would squeeze this projectile together, which would force the lead into the grooves of the rifling and make it spin, so they get a really straight shot.
Yeah.
And then they had grape shot, which was like putting a whole bunch of steel balls into like a tomato can or something and firing that, and it was just devastating to people.
Right.
They just did all kinds of weird stuff.
Yeah. Kind of like a massive shotgun.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
It was. If you ever get a chance to go to Gettysburg, I would recommend it. It's pretty awesome. You can do these drive-through tours of, and it's at Pennsylvania, and you can you can just like Pickett's Charge. You can just look at the one at the Yankee end, and you can look at the Confederate end, and it's just like, oh my gosh, they really did this.
Right.
It's just incredible fortitude those guys had. Just incredible, unbelievable, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, got off track there.
No, that's yeah. We haven't really jumped into history on this yet, so there we go. Very cool. So you were doing this in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
How long were you there then?
I was there probably 3, maybe 4 years, and then I joined the Army. I had a girlfriend, and I was head over heels, and basically she dumped me, so I just wanted to get out of Dodge. So I joined the Army. Not the smartest thing in the world to do. I wouldn't recommend it, believe me. But, you do. You're idiots when you're young. So, so anyway, that's how I ended up out here. I ended up I went to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri for basic training, and then I went to, I was a 36C20, which is a field wireman, which basically means I'm right there with the medic to get picked off. Communications and medics, you pick them both off first, right? And the recruiter didn't tell me that. Oh yeah, you'll be installing telephones. I never saw a telephone. Actually, I ended up in the motor pool. I never saw a field wire either. So it was just crazy. But they were pulling people out of Vietnam at the time. It was 74 or 5, and they were pulling people out. So basically, we were just standing around twiddling our thumbs. Okay. But it got me out here. And, I remember, I went to Fort Gordon, Georgia first for training, and then I got sent out here. And then I remember when I was here for 3 days, and it rained for 3 days, right? And I had never seen mountains, because there's no mountains. I mean, there's mountains, but not mountains like we have out here.
Right.
And I had never, ever seen a mountain, and other than, Disneyland, the Wild World of Disney every Sunday night, with Walt Disney, and they'd show the mountain. Anyway, where was I? Oh yeah, I was at Fort Lewis. Been there for 3 days. It's raining. They put you in a holding pattern. It's called just till they decide where they're going to put you on the base, right? So you're just kind of getting used to the base. They encourage you to find out where everything is, the PX, and all the blah blah blah. And so the fourth day, the sun came out. I walked around a building, and there's Mount Rainier. Fort Lewis is real close to Mount Rainier. Okay. And there's Mount Rainier, and I'm like, gulp, and I'm like, and the first guy I saw was this sergeant. I didn't know who he was. There's a mountain. And he's like, he puts his hand on my shoulder. He says, "Okay, son, it's not going anywhere." And it was like, but it's a mountain. And it was like, wow. So it was pretty mind blowing, really. Anyway, so I basically was stuck in a motor pool. I always liked photography, so they had a photography shop that the guys could use. So I would go, I'd take pictures of the guys and give them 8x10s and stuff, and kind of made me kind of semi-popular. I wasn't. There was a lot of prejudice. So I had to figure out a way to avoid being called a cracker, which means it's a white person, right? And it wasn't just between black and white. There were, it was Puerto Ricans. There was, they had a lot of what they call NCO clubs, non-commissioned officer clubs on Fort Lewis at that time, and they still do, I'm sure. And there was the Puerto Rican club, there was the black club, there was the white club, there was the cowboy club, the rock and roll club. And you just, if you weren't into that particular vein, you didn't go into those clubs. You just did not, you just knew you didn't go into them. And so there was a lot of fights, you know, stuff like that. So I figured I need to survive this. So I would take pictures of all the guys in my company and other people too, anybody who asked. And it's all black and white, you know, and everything was free. All the film was free, the paper was free, developing chemicals were free. And I would take 8x10 pictures of all the guys and just give them to them, you know, and it was like, you know, leave that white boy alone because he's taking our picture, you know, and so that's how I survived that particular, it was insane. I mean, it was pretty insane. We had a police call every morning and every night these guys would be throwing their beer cans and their cigarette butts out the window, you know, and it's like, you know, you guys, and then they complain about police call in the morning, right? Yeah. So I said, you guys, if you don't do that, then we don't have to pick them up. And there's a term they use. It's the Army, blank the Army. You know, it's like, oh, okay. And I thought to myself, I am in the wrong place. I should have joined the Air Force. You know, so I started going over the Air Force Base, which is right next door to McCord Air Force Base, and they needed a projectionist in their movie theater, and I didn't know anything about that. And this is the old, you know, there's two projection cameras up in the booth, right? Yeah. And if you look on some of the movies, you'll as it gets to the end of the movie, you'll see a black spot appear. Yeah. And then, like 10 seconds later, there's another one, and that's at that time when the first spot appears, you get the second camera running. And then when that second, you switch over cameras when you see the second spot. Oh, okay. So they trained me, and I did that for the rest of my time at Fort Lewis. Okay. And I just go, after I got done working, I go over and show movies. I remember one time there was a mom and daughter ran the concession stand. And I remember one night I went in there, and they're bawling. I mean, just crying, you know. Nobody's there yet, right? And I'm going, what's wrong? And they had Southern accents, and they go, you don't know? You don't know? Elvis died today. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm going upstairs. How do you not know that? I sound like Bill Clinton there, didn't I? Sorry, Bill. I did not have intimate relationships with that woman. Anyway. So I went upstairs and showed the movie. I can't tell you how many times I saw, like, Grease and, you know, what's that other one? It was Grease. And then I worked, just to jump forward, do you remember the Thunderbird Drive-In in Marysville? No. It's where Roy Robinson Chevrolet is right now. Okay. And that was the Thunderbird Drive-In. It was run by this little old lady. And I actually worked there and we'll get to that part, but I actually worked there. And I also worked in downtown Everett at the theater there as a projectionist. Okay. And that was the old time. Now they don't do that. They have the new technological improved projections. You know, they're idiot-proof, right? I made a few mistakes, believe me. And I'll tell you one real quick. At the Thunderbird Drive-In, I was... I had put the reels in, so there's two reels, right? You've probably seen pictures of these little machines. Yeah. There's like an arc, like a welder's arc that makes the light, and there's a big mirror in the back, and it shines out. And so you put the reels in, and then you get the second camera ready. Most films are about 6 reels. Okay. You know, roughly, right? 5 to 6, 6 to 7. And then you put the reels in, and you flip this little lever over, and that locks them in place, right? Well, I didn't flick the little lever over. And I went downstairs to BS with the cute girls at the concession stand. And I'm sitting there, you know, and all of a sudden, crash, and the screen goes white, right? Oh, no. Beep, 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 beep. You know, I run upstairs. The film's on the floor. I'm like, oh, geez, you know. And so you got to roll a bunch of film out to get it through through the mechanism. And so they missed about, 5 minutes of the film, you know. It's like the helicopter's flying, you know, and then the next thing they see, it's taking off, you know. And I got talked to about that one. That wasn't good. Another fun thing. Well, it wasn't fun, but they always showed two. They always showed two features.
Okay.
Right? So and it doesn't get dark here until 10, right? So
Right.
it's like you're 2:30. Well, 2:30 in the morning, right? Well, rough. I don't know. It was dark and it was late, and I'd have to go wake up. That's air quotes. Wake up the people in their cars. Hey, movie's over. Time to go home, please. I didn't like that part, but it was part and parcel with the. I'm the only one there. I mean, the concessions people are gone, right? I've got to go out. That was my. Then I have to lock the gate and all that kind of stuff. It was fun. And people would drive off with the mic in their cars. Like, really? The thing sounds terrible anyway. I mean, what are you going to do? Use a speaker in your garage? I mean, geez.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that was I kind of got off track.
No, but that's great.
It was fun.
So that all started with So when you were doing that for the at the other base, then you were just doing it on the side, like it wasn't actually part of your service. Or
No,
anything.
it was a job. I got paid for it.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah. It was fun though. I mean, I enjoyed it, and you know what it did? It got me away from the barracks.
Yeah.
So it was. My whole thing was survival back then because it wasn't fun.
Yeah.
I just wasn't into I've never been into the drinking, going to the bar and drinking. It's just not me. It's not what I do. And I was like the only one not doing that.
Right.
So it was different. Everybody's, trying to impress everybody, and everybody's got a story, right? They come back from Tacoma. At that time, all the GIs had really short hair.
Okay.
And everybody else had really long hair.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's just reversed now, kind of, But, no, not really. Everybody has short hair now, or no hair, like me. Anyway, so if you go to town, it's like nobody wanted to be around a GI because, Vietnam wasn't popular.
Right.
So it wasn't a very accepting culture to the military. So I didn't go to town much. I hung out, took a lot of walks. Fort Lewis, there's just tons and tons of places you can walk. I mean, it's a huge, huge base. So I would do that. And working in the motor pool, I got to drive the Jeep around and pick up parts from somebody else, some other motor pool. We needed a part for this truck or that truck, and I'd say, go get it from, this company over there. So then I got to meet some of the other motor pool people, and we had a little kind of thing going on where we could exchange parts, if we needed to do. Because at that time, you weren't allowed to store parts, which is like, really? And it was just weird stuff, but it's just the way it goes in the military. But it was fun driving some of those trucks.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I drove a 5-ton. I drove deuces to deuce and a halves and everything down to a Jeep. It was really kind of fun. It was all that Vietnam or Korean War type vehicles, So it was kind of cool.
Yeah.
That part of it.
Nice. So then post-military, what'd you do once you got out then?
Well, I got out, and I was, at that time, I was living in Lacey, which is just outside of Olympia, and I got a job for a construction outfit, and we were building homes. And so I did that for a couple of years, and then I decided I got in with I would say wrong crowd, but I'll just say they weren't exactly the kind of people I wanted to hang out with.
Yeah.
They just made me uncomfortable with some of the things they were doing. So I decided to get out of Dodge, as it were, before something happened. And so I have the GI Bill, and I thought, well, I go to photography school. Why not? So I looked up photography schools, and there's one up in Everett, Washington.
Okay.
Everett Community College. So I said, okay. So I told my boss, and he said, cool, all right. I'm going to miss you, blah, blah, blah. He's a nice guy, really super nice guy. I really like working for him and everything. I just needed to get out of that area, away from those people. Sometimes you just need to put some distance between you and some negative stuff. Yeah. So I did that, and I came up to Everett, and I met people that were like-minded and into good, healthy things like hiking and canoeing and, all that kind of cool stuff, and photography. And then that's where I started pottery. I took pottery there.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. And so I did a lot of photography. I did a lot of hiking. I did a lot of canoeing at that time, and it was just like a whole new world that never existed for me before. Because I didn't growing up. My parents were so busy. We never did anything.
Okay.
And I was in Cub Scouts when I was a kid, but I was at a den mother's, and bless her heart. But I mean, we were making popsicle sticks, things, and I'm like, this is not Scouts, I want to go camp, because I didn't understand. It was Cub Scouts, right? So they do that kind of, but I wanted to do something fun, and anyway, I quit. So, and I kind of regret it a little bit, knowing what you guys went through. You had a lot of fun. Although I have to say, I wouldn't send my kids to Scouts now. They've gone down the wrong path. But anyway, so I came up here and I met a lot of best friend type things, and did the pottery, and I was working on, I had the GI Bill still, but if you don't go to school, you don't get it. So in the summer months, I had to get a job. Well, I couldn't get a job one summer, and I had met a lot of friends, other people at the school, and we were it was really a fun time. I mean, it was exciting. Everything was alive. Everything was new.
Yeah.
It was really fun.
How old were you during this time?
I was 25, I think. 24, 25.
Wow. Okay.
Something like that.
You had done a lot by 25.
Yeah.
Okay. Very cool.
And so, living in Everett, I was on the GI Bill, and I had actually. That's right. I left the whole thing out. I went to Germany for a year and a half and lived over there, and I worked for the military in their armed forces.
Okay.
They call it AFIS, Armed Forces Recreation Services. I think they call it something different now. But anyway, I worked in a town called Garmisch. I lived there and worked, and so that was a blast. I mean, I had a really appreciation for a good beer. And when I came back, there was like no craft beer anymore. It was just like the normal run-of-the-mill stuff. I won't mention any names, but one with a B that still can't handle it. And so, I mean, just the different, not only are they different beers, but they come in different glasses. They have a glass for every type of beer, right?
Oh, okay.
So a Pilsner comes in it looks kind of like a wine glass, not really. And a Dunkel or a dark beer comes in like a tumbler, and a Hefeweizen, which is a wheat beer, comes in a really tall glass, because you have to pour it in a certain way, otherwise it just blows out of the glass.
Yeah. And
they're like cellar temperature. They're not refrigerated.
Yeah.
Went to Oktoberfest a couple times. Anyway, I came back. And then I had gone to school, went to Germany, and then I came back and went back to school.
Okay.
And by that time, the people that I had met and hung out with had moved on, so I met a new group of people. But I ran out of money. I was still on a GI Bill, and instead of getting a job, I decided to go out to Skagit Flats and live out there for a month.
Okay.
So I lived out there. All I had was a canoe and a couple of things of food, and then I would go out every day. I'd go out and I'd fish, and I'd go out, and there were some farmers' fields out there, and I'd go, take some food, sneak over. I didn't have to sneak, but nobody's out there. But I got really tan too, and I probably lost about 50 pounds, and I came back and I looked like Moses, I mean, I was a big beard, and everything, dark, and it was fun, though. It was a lot of fun. It was lonely, but it was a lot of fun. I met there's river people who live on the river out there full time. Well, there was at that time. There's a lot of I don't know if you've ever been out there, but there's duck hunting shacks out there.
Okay.
So there's a couple that are well established, and I met this old boy, and we became friends. And I'd go up, and park at his dock, and go up, and we just sit there and talk all day. Not all day, but all day. And then I got dumped out there, which was I had a girlfriend, and she knew I was out there, and one day where I'm sitting up on his dock, up on his house, on his deck, not dock, the dock's down below, and I see this kayak coming, and I look and I go, well, that's I'm not going to mention her name.
Yeah.
That's my girlfriend, and she's with another guy, and she's like, hello. I'm like, well, you little, and I told him. He goes, well, I don't think she's your girlfriend anymore, and I'm like, wow, I'm out here all by myself, and you do this to me, I was like, gosh, I said all kinds of fun things, Anyway, they came back a little while later, and we were still sitting there, and I was just like, yeah, I wanted to just be nice. Anyway, so that hurt. I up all night thinking about that one. What did I do?
Yeah.
Well, what didn't I do? Probably shouldn't have gone out there. Probably should have paid more attention. I'm going out in the woods for a month. See you later. Hope you wait for me. I didn't think about that kind of stuff. Anyway, so I went back to school, and then I needed a place to stay. So there was this house. I met some people, and they had an extra room. And it was 3410 Colby Avenue, downtown Everett.
Yeah.
Colby Avenue is on the very top of the hill, and now there's apartments or something there. Anyway, they had a room. So I asked, and it was all women, and I asked them if, her name was Stephanie, and I said, hey, Stephanie, she was in the art department with me.
Okay.
And I said, I know you got a room, I know you're blah, blah, blah. And so anyway, they had a meeting, and they said I could move in. So I did, and that's where I met Amy, my wife.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. We had a pillow fight and fell in love. And something about those pillows, I don't know what it is, but... Anyway, that was a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun parties there, Halloween parties, all kinds of Thanksgiving dinners and stuff, and that was a lot of fun. And then we got married a couple years later, and we moved to Mukilteo, and we lived like two doors down from Arnie's. You know where Arnie's is?
No.
It's just up from the ferry dock.
Okay.
Up on the hill, across the railroad bridge. And then, so we lived there, and then we had our first kid there, Ursula. And then we moved out to a friend of mine, Lou. He's a cabinet maker. He was living in Lake Stevens, and he moved, and that house came available, and we decided, to move there. So we moved out there, and that's where Wes was born. Well, he was born in the hospital, but, and and then from there, we moved up to Camano Island. Because the house was sold, it was a rental, and the property, it was on a farm, and the developer came in and offered the owner an offer he couldn't resist, and so we had to move. So we came up to Camano and started looking, and we found a place over on the east side, on Chapman Road. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's where we came up here. Yeah, and that was the Mike Nestor was talking about the shipwreck. That was still there. Actually, we actually ate there a couple of times. Okay. And there was only one light by Les Schwab's, and it was a blinking yellow. There was nothing. There was a farmette. It was the only thing that was up by Hagen's. Or farmette was where McDonald's is. Okay. And that was all that was there. It was just fields, and it was. And the road was a lot narrower then, 532, and there just wasn't a lot of stuff. There was a bank, Whidbey Island Bank was at the corner here. They're really sorry they moved. Well, we blew that one, guys. Let's go to the plaza. Anyway, Coastal's happy. Let's see. So we came up here, and this was with the kids, and we met you guys. The kids, we just started homeschooling. We homeschooled. Yeah, we're nerds. We're homeschoolers. And the reason Amy and I wanted to homeschool is because neither one of us had a good time in high school. Yeah. It was just horrible. Both of us hated high school. She's from San Diego, and I'm from New York. So, I mean, two different states, but the same experiences. The bullies. What I've come, I really despise bullies and predators. They just irk me to no end, and part of that is from our high school experience. So we decided that we didn't want our kids to experience that, and it turned out. They're both educated. They both have. Wes has 2 degrees. Ursula has 2, I think, or 1. I don't remember. And so they're both degrees that you can make money at. Yeah. They're not in the humanities. So no knocking there, just the truth. So anyway, yeah. So I got way off track here. I don't even know where we are in this thing. I'm just rattling along.
No, this is great because, I didn't never know how you had met your wife. Love your guys' family. Been good friends with them for a long time. Wes was my best man in our wedding, and so now he's a pilot. So he's been flying all over the place. So I haven't been able to see him as much. But every time he comes to town, you should get to say hi to him.
Yeah. He always wants to look you up. Yeah, I know he does. He goes, "I want to go see Brandon." And then when what's his name? Xander worked here.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to see Brandon Xander.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and I think what's interesting is you've had this.
And Tobin too.
Yeah. Yeah. All of the friends have been around and known each
Can
other.
I ask you something?
Yes.
I'm very curious. Whether you and Tobin had this carabiner thing. Maybe we shouldn't talk about it on the radio. I was just curious. I mean, what was the...
So where that, at least to my recollection, where that started was we would usually go, after church, we would go and hang out. A lot of times we would do bike rides around the island, or we would just go meet up at the plaza. And so one of the places we would go, when we went to the plaza, we were all really poor. So we'd be able to buy like one thing out of the deli and then usually a drink. Well, for a while there, the plaza got these drinks in called Trek. And I don't even remember how they tasted. They probably tasted terrible. But what was neat about them was that they came in aluminum bottles with a carabiner hook, kind of like the water bottles that everyone's selling now.
Oh, yeah.
You couldn't buy them back then, or at least I didn't know that you could. And these drinks were just in those water bottles.
Oh.
So they were aluminum water bottles with a carabiner top thing on it, and then it had a carabiner on it. And that, like, we started, we went there and we're like, oh, these are cool. So we got one, and then we kept the carabiner, and we just, because we were bored, put it on our belt loop or whatever and had it. Well, I usually always took things to the nth degree when it came to things. So, like, before long, I would go get a drink every Sunday, and I'm like, oh, well, I'll just keep, piling the carabiners on. Well, before you know it, I've got 3 carabiners on each belt loop, and I can't walk.
Yeah,
so,
I thought your pants were going to fall down. He's weighted down, guys.
I wanted to be prepared in case gravity changed or something.
Yeah. It was cute. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, we had fun talking about that.
So, yeah, now then that turned into a carabiner obsession. So I have like a whole box of carabiners at home, and my kids every once in a while get into it and take one. So my son, both of them now at this point, and my daughters have all ran around with carabiners on their pants at one time or another. So it's passing on the legacy.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, that's very, very good.
But yeah, I mean, you've had this huge amount of experience with different fields and different expertise and all these different jobs and stuff. But throughout that, it seems like even throughout high school, you were interested in the arts and
I was,
whether it was photography or pottery. So that kind of leads me to when did you finally kind of decide to dive more into this and and kind of start Three Roosters Nursery?
Well, the pottery started when I went for photography, and photography was fun. It just wasn't talking to me. I just didn't feel the love. Although I met a lot of great friends there. It was pretty cool. And this is film photography, not it wasn't even the new stuff, non-film photography.
Yeah.
But they had a ceramics class, so I decided to take it. It's just, what the heck, And for whatever reason, it was like, this is pretty cool. I like this, and so it was like every day all day long I was in that ceramics class just throwing pots. Well, actually, I was throwing the teacher made me throw cylinders over and over and over, because if you can throw a cylinder that's the same thickness from the top to the bottom or the bottom to the top, you can throw anything.
Okay.
So he just had me do that, and that's all I did. And they had clay. I didn't have to buy clay because they had buckets of reclaimed clay, So I would just throw and throw and throw and throw and throw. And so I thought, this is something I want to do. So I got a potter's wheel and all this, and I started. But, Ursula came along, and then it was like, you got to get a job, So I got a job, and I actually got a job for Eddy Line Kayaks. So I used to build Eddy Line Kayaks when they were down in, actually they were in Mukilteo for a long time. Then we moved up to Payne Field. Now they're up in Burlington. And it's still called Eddy Line, but Tom and Lisa don't own it any longer. And so So I did that, and I built Amy a kayak for a wedding present, and she bought me a potter's wheel.
Oh, okay.
And so we did that, and then so up to today, I mean, up to 7 years ago, I had everything. I had the potter's wheel, the kiln, everything I needed was in the barn collecting dust. So I built a pottery shop. I walled off a section of the barn, and I built a shop, and I put all that stuff that I already had from 30-some years ago, and I just started throwing pots again. And I saw a guy on YouTube's name's, of course, I won't remember his name. No, anyway, he throws flower pots, and that's his thing. He lives in Connecticut. I want to say Guy Wolf, that's his name. And awesome guy. Went out to Connecticut, met him. Really nice. Him and his wife, really nice people. She's an artist too, and his kids are artists. It's just really cool. Nice, beautiful country, Connecticut. I'd never been there before. We went in fall, so a lot of pumpkins and the trees are changing. It was really cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, came home and started making flower pots, and part of the reason is because nobody else is. Maybe they will now they hear this, but if you go to our shows, I mean, they're making butter dishes and bowls and yada 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 and plates, and I thought, well, I don't want to do that. I want to do something different. So I started making vases and flower pots, and then I started carving on them, and then I started in taking a piece of clay and carving a critter on it, and then sticking it on the pot, and then carving the detail out of it. It's kind of a 3-dimensional or 2-dimensional thing, and so that turned out really well, and that's what I'm doing now. I'm coming out with some new designs. I've got a starfish design this year. I've got I like the blue heron. Blue heron's my favorite critter out there in this area.
Okay.
So I really like them, and so they're my favorite. But turtles are real fun to do. Sea turtles. I did a dog, but I didn't particularly like it too much. I have to get better, more detailed. And just trying stuff, making little succulent pots or sedum pots that you can see in windows and stuff at restaurants when you go back to a restaurant. And it's been fun. And so we've been doing art shows. And we don't sell at the house. I mean, we tried doing that, but nobody came. It was kind of hard to do business when nobody shows up. So we decided we'd go to the people, and it turned out that that's the way the cookie crumbles, so to speak. It worked out well, and the art shows are fun. And one of the reasons they're fun is because rarely does anybody go to an art show who doesn't want to.
Right.
The guy will say, "Now you go, honey. I'll stay home and mow the lawn." I got to tell you a funny story though. I've done this Mother's Day show for a number of years, and when Naked City was here. The guy would come in, on Mother's Day, right? And she wants to look at all the stuff, and he could care less, right? But he's doing it because it's Mother's Day, right? So he's out there. He's got his arms folded across his chest, and he's kind of shuffling his feet, looking and going, yeah. How much money is she going to spend today? And you can just see it on his face, right? And then he looks around, he sees, oh, there's a brewery. Honey, I'll be in there. And she's like, okay, I'll spend your money out here by myself, and it's really funny to watch. It's amazing, these art shows. It's just really fun because you're in the booth, right? And this humanity is passing you by. It's like being it's like sitting at a bench in Vegas and watching everybody, trying to act Vegas walk by. That's crazy too. But but anyway, everybody's happy. It's an upbeat atmosphere. It's not. When I worked on I worked for Stanwin Ambulance, which is a side story, and that was a downer.
Yeah,
because it's always a crisis.
Right.
It's always. I mean, we did have some funny calls. We had one kid get bit by a gardener snake, and then they call it snake bite. We show up, and this kid's. I don't want to tell you where it is, but it's on the island. He was standing in front of his house, screaming. He's got this gardener snake on his finger, hanging down, wiggling. Right? We pulled up, and I just started laughing, But you can't laugh, right? But it's like, are you kidding me? You called us for this, He's just screaming, We get out, we take the thing off, and he grabs a shovel and he just chops the thing into a million pieces, I'm like, are you kidding me? That was pretty funny. We've had some other funny ones, but most of the calls were pretty bad. In fact, I got burned out. Really, there was a couple of pretty serious calls, and it just affected me. I should have quit way before I did. It affected me. It affected my sleep pattern. It affected everything. And I look back on those days with fondness because I love helping people.
Yeah.
But at the same token, it's a pretty rough deal.
Yeah.
Because you're always dealing with something horrible, and some of it's self-inflicted horrible, and some of it is horrible inflicted on innocent. And that's what got me, was that part, and
yeah.
but I had a friend that helped me through it a lot, and so that helped, and things like that. But anyway, that was quite a while ago. It was over 10 years ago. And so I don't even remember where I started rambling. I'm rambling. Drew me the pottery. I think that was what you asked. Yeah. So I that's how I got started in pottery. And again, I mean, it was fun. It's fun. I put a book on tape. I have a heater, so I'm warm in the winter. And the only thing I don't have is water. I've got to cart the water out there. And this year is kind of weird though with the virus. There might not be a lot of shows, so I just have a lot of. I'll have a lot of inventory, which is a good thing, and I just don't have a lot of space for it.
Right.
But I'll have a lot of inventory, and maybe the Christmas shows will be the way to go this year.
Yeah.
Depends on what gets shut down. They're talking about shutting the Everett show Sorticulture down in June, and then maybe Mother's Day, and I do a show in Everett called Fresh Paint, and I haven't been accepted to that one yet, but if they're probably wondering what they should do too, and that's connected with the Shack Art Center. So I might do galleries, or maybe take something over the Zipline people and see if they'd like to put what I make on their shelves.
Yeah,
type of thing, and just try. I have to try different things. And as far as the nursery part goes, we were a full-on nursery, and then we had to back it down. It was just too much work. I can't do the pottery and a full-on nursery.
Yeah,
it's just me and Amy.
Yeah.
And so we decided just to do succulents because they travel well. They travel really well.
Okay. And
the other plants just didn't work out, and the succulents are easy to propagate.
Okay.
And so. And when I need something, I'll go up to Skagit Gardens. Skagit Valley Gardens is the nursery. Skagit Gardens is the wholesaler. I'll go up there and I'll get something. But we might, in the future, we might just do away with that and just do pottery, strictly pottery, and do that, and expand what we make. Well, I have a new business card. It's called Functional Folk Art Pottery.
Okay.
And I think that might be our new name. I'll give you one.
Sweet.
And it's pottery that's pleasing to the eye as well as useful. And that's what we want to do. We want to do that type of thing.
Oh, very cool.
And so we did that, or we're doing that. And I just don't really know right now. I mean, because the sedums go so well with the pots that we make, the flower pots.
Yeah.
They just fit so totally together so well.
Right.
So dropping that would be, it would be. I guess it's more like a eye candy to somebody passing your booth.
Yeah. Well, and I think they're neat because they're something that if you're not, especially people that live in apartments or don't have room to put a full pot or something, they can still buy something that's really neat and, unique.
Easy to take care of.
Yeah.
There's 3 rules of growing succulents. It's sunshine, well-drained soil, and neglect. Most people kill succulents, or actually they kill all plants because they overwater.
Okay.
Plants don't like to be overwatered. They like moist soil, but they don't like wet soil.
Yeah.
So if you're out there and you say you don't have a green thumb, you're probably overwatering.
Okay.
So just there you go. Free advice.
You heard it here first. Yeah. Well, I mean, I've gotten to. I mean, as you started getting back into pottery, I know got to see some of your early things as you were getting back into it and everything. And now I'm like, in the short period of time, being able to see what you've created and what you've been bringing to our art festivals and stuff like that in the local community, have just been really, really neat to be able to see everything. Like I love the sea turtle ones that you do. They're just like, they're very unique and they're very neat that you're like do everything and then you have that as well. So
that's what we're trying to do, is be different. You know, I got a bear claw downstairs in the marketplace.
Yeah.
You know, and that's, I use three clays: a white clay, a red clay, and a black clay. And when they're fired, it's black. It's called Cash's clay. And those of you who are old enough know who that is. Yep. It's amazing. A lot of people don't because they're not old enough. So the red clay is called Navajo Wheel, and the white clay is called JG6. And I get all three of them from Tacoma Art Clay Center. That's what it is. And the black clay is really fun to work with, but it's a finicky clay because it's what they call a dirty clay. So you have to fire it very slow on the bisque fire and then on the final fire with the glaze. And so sometimes it'll blister like a boil blister.
Oh, okay.
So you have to be very, very careful with it. And that was a learning curve. But it's so nice. It's just this dark, rich black color.
Yeah, it looks really cool.
Yeah.
It looks like it's almost like full ceramic, not clay at all. So
yeah, a lot of people think it's the glaze, but it's not. It's just the clay itself.
Okay.
Because I burnish the pots too, which gives them kind of a sheen.
Okay.
So after they're leather hard, I trim them and put a foot on them, and then I flip them upside down. And they're already flipped upside down. And then I have a few different tools that I use to burnish the thing to make it shiny.
Okay.
And it goes into the kiln. It's actually a lot shinier before it gets bisqued, but it comes out pretty nice. It's got a nice little sheen to it. And then I tried polish them with some diamond polishes one time, but it just takes too long. It's not worth it.
Yeah.
But it's really cool. It's smooth.
Yeah.
It's like,
it looks really cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're going long here, so I'm going to go into a rapid fire questions. But so I like to end every podcast with some rapid fire questions. So the first one is, do you have a lesser known or favorite location on Camano Island that you like to hang out?
Absolutely. And it's actually north of Camano Island, Skagit Flats.
Okay.
We call it the secret spot. And it's only there at low tide. So you need a boat, and you don't want to go during duck hunting season.
Yeah. Yes.
It's warm in the summertime. It's the most beautiful beaches in the Northwest are right there, but only at low tide, and then they disappear. So we would go out. There's a certain place we go, and there's a little swimming hole at low tide, and we'll ride the tide out, and then we'll park it. I bring a barbecue. We just spend all day out there, and then we go swimming or hiking, and the tide comes in. We pack everything up, put it in the canoe, and we just wait for the tide to float the boat, and it takes us all the way back to the put-in. So a very easy paddling, and also you can almost walk to Camano from out there. It's not mud like at what's
Atsalati,
it?
Or not Atsalati,
what's more the one at Moore Road called? Moore Road by the airport.
English Boom?
English Boom.
Yeah.
That's super muddy.
Yes. Yeah.
This is not muddy. It's all the rivers from the logging days. I assume it's all the logging silt or the silt left over, and so it's sand, and it's a lot of shellfish out there. There's the soft-shelled clam, and you can't eat the stomach, but you can eat the siphon tube.
Okay.
Takes a little bit of work because you got to split it open and get the sand out, but pretty tasty.
Very cool.
That's one of the things I ate when I lived out there.
Okay.
And I would eat cattail roots, which are very good actually, and pig's weed, and I'd foraged. It was a pretty fun experience.
That's crazy.
Anyway, that was where I would take people. To answer the next question, that's where I do take them.
Yeah.
Unless they're too old to walk.
Yeah.
I mean to canoe. My other favorite place would be Livingston Bay. They have a little hike down there.
Okay.
And there's a little trail called the Hobbit Trail.
Yes.
That's pretty fun. The kids really like that one, so that's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Doing that, and but the state park, we used to go to state park. It was like free to get in and $4 to camp. So we used to go there when the kids were little all the time.
Yeah.
They had that little three-sided shelter down at before they had the new one, and you could just go in there anytime you wanted to. Didn't need a permit or anything. And
Right.
we used to take the Coleman stove and make hot chocolate in the wintertime and watch the boats go by. Ursula learned how to ride a bike down there.
Okay. Yeah.
And it was just, then there's some sand cliffs, and we used to go over there and write our names in the sand cliffs. And
yeah. Those things are awesome.
Yeah, spent a lot of time at the state park. It's one of I think one of the nicest state parks around.
It is.
I mean, it's just really, really, really nice. And there's tons of trails. I mean, if you like running, I mean, gosh, you could probably, I know from Cama Beach to the state park and back is over 6 miles. I mean, so you could do a lot of running, and you smell the trees and the whole bit. There's no car exhaust, no nothing. It's really, really, really nice.
Yeah, it is. All right. Who is an interesting or fascinating person in this community that I should interview next?
Mary Margaret. Mary Margaret has lived here her whole life. In fact, she lives on Olson Road, and she's an Olson. And I was talking to her one time. She's our past senator.
Yeah.
She is awesome. She's an awesome lady. She just knows a lot of history. She was telling me about the guy who owned our place.
Okay.
And he was a dark-skinned, I can't remember, Italian or something. And then he was in love with some Norwegian gal or Swedish. I can't remember. Anyway, it was a big, ooh, you can't do that.
Yep.
He's not the same race or what. He's human, but he's dark. That's why Stanwood is so weird, because it was twin cities. There was two cities. You had one group of people and another group of people. Most towns have a downtown, right? Cedar Woolley has a downtown. Arlington has a downtown. LaConner has a downtown. Yeah. Stanwood has two downtowns. And, it's like, but they're doing a good job. I got hats off to the mayor and all those people. They're really trying to knit that together, bring it together, and hats off. But it was the beginning wasn't so nice.
Yeah.
They didn't like each other, and it's just anyway, long story short, Mary Margaret, she has a lot of information. I mean, you would need to do a two-part podcast with her, because she can just, she's, and anybody else who like her, and I don't know who that is. I mean, you've interviewed just a ton of people now, so I mean, it was just fun.
I still have a huge list. So
yeah. All
right. And lastly, if you could have a message on a billboard on Camano right as you're driving on the island, what would that say? It's
a Grüß Gott, welcome. That's I'm supposed to say it in welcome to Camano, but say it in German. And Grüß Gott is God's greeting. So God's greeting, welcome to Camano Island.
Very cool.
Grüß Gott. Umlauts over the O and U. They say that in German. When I lived over there, it's kind of like as you're walking and you pass somebody, you say Grüß Gott.
Okay.
Kind of like on Lopez, the Lopez wave, right? Do you know about that?
No, I don't think I do.
If you ever go to Lopez Island and you're driving around, every car you pass, they're going to wave at you. And you have to wave back.
Oh, no.
and then when you get back to Anacortes, you start waving at everybody, and they're like, what's wrong with you?
Do I know them?
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, so they would say Grüß Gott.
Okay.
So I just thought that would be really cool. God's greeting, welcome to Camano Island.
Yeah. Very cool.
That's not going to happen, but, maybe if I owned a real estate company, it might.
There you go.
But I don't. Anyway, right. Brandon, it's been fun.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today.
I wish I could talk more.
Yeah, well, we'll have to get you on for a second round. I'm still trying to get your son as well, because as I said, you're an airline pilot, so you're somewhat of interest. And he's like, I'm not coming on.
Oh, he should.
Maybe we can drag him on somehow.
Yeah, he's having a good time. I'm really proud of him. He took a lot of hard work and time, and he had some stress involved, but he persevered and he came through it. They both did, actually, both Ursula. She persevered too, and they've done really well for themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm really proud of them, and I'm proud of you too. I mean, taking over this business, that's really awesome.
Yeah.
You and TJ both. It's just really cool. It's really been fun. It's been fun watching you grow up.
Oh, good. Tell me when I'm grown up.
Yeah, well, you should take that carabiner off your pet.
No, that one's staying. All right, Islanders. I will talk to you on the next one. Well, a big thank you to Bob Schroepfer for joining me on the podcast today, and thank you for listening. If you haven't already, be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast platform. It really helps us be found by other islanders like yourself. And for more information on this episode, you can go to camanocommons.com/EP39. That's camanocommons.com/EP39. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.